When you make your slabs, what stage are they in?
Leather hard.
When you make them?
Oh no, they're in plastic.
Plastic, right? And then when you build with them, they're in what stage? Leather hard. So right now, they're a little drier. If I were to bend this, it would break, right? And at this point, you want to make sure you take away the dry paper towels that help them get to leather hard. So if your slabs feel like they'll hold their shape, they're strong, then make sure you're wrapping them at night with just plastic, no paper towels anymore. You don't want them to get any drier than leather hard, okay? All right, so we're gonna talk today about surface. We brainstormed some ideas yesterday, and I want you to be aware that because there's two parts to this project, one is learning how to build with hard slab, and two is making sure that you have addressed every inch of surface. So all parts of your surface should have something done to them. There shouldn't be just the random canvas texture there. And it can be as simple as you get a little bit of water on a sponge. It looks like I've done those. See how this, from where I smoothed my seam, it's smooth there. And yours will be more lovely than this, right? My seams are not all fixed up because I didn't finish them all in my demo. I just did this so I have it. But if I wet this a little bit, and then I can go over it just with my finger. If it's a little too dry and that's not getting rid of it, a rounded wood rib works nice to get the canvas texture off. But I'm just basically giving myself a nice smooth surface to work on. And you can do this as you smooth your edges, as you come around. Yours will be more lovely than mine, I'm sure, when it's all put together, okay? Don't forget, all seams. What are the 3 steps inside and out for all seams? Can you give me, what's the first step when I put one on? Do you know, Ron? Do you know? What is it? Slip. Slip and score. So I'm gonna score and slip, scoochy scoochy, right? And then what do I do on this outside edge? I'll give you a hint with my serrated rib. Exactly, make the marks. It's stitching. So I'm gonna stitch across those seams, and then I get the little thin coil. What do I call the coil? Do you remember? Angel, do you remember? Wormy, because it's going to be nice and wet, and then we just slide it right into that seam. So we just make sure that it's all in there. So inside and out, don't forget those. So I have my leather hard slabs. I have my seams built in theory. Did we talk about lids at the last demo?
Yeah, I think we did.
Did we talk about how to cut them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So surface design is all we got to cover today then. With that, I can do lots of things on here. This is like a big blank canvas. What I don't want to do is draw. Drawing is always better on a piece of paper than it is on a piece of clay. Because the beauty of clay and the cool thing about it is you can make it 3D. So let's just say I'm gonna put a little branch to start with. So here's my little branch. It's here. I put it in with my needle, and you know, it's just drawn. It's not so exciting. I want to make this 3-dimensional sculptural looking and exciting. Remember, we're doing relief sculpture, bas relief sculpture, which means it just sticks out a little bit on the sides of your boxes. So now, what if I take a loop tool, and I love the little corners of these loop tools, and instead of drawing that, and I just put it there to know where it goes, I carve in an edge. So I go up to it, and you can carve out an area to make something deeper, or you can carve next to something, and then I'm going to smooth this out. I'm going to go just a little deeper. I don't want to go too far, but kind of dig in there a little bit so that I see the edge. And then I fade it so that it looks like the tree is sticking out. I just got to check that a little more. Yeah, there we go. That's sticking out pretty well. And then I fade this out, like so. So this is fading that way. Now it still looks like I don't believe it's a tree yet. What if I add a texture to the tree? So I've carved to make it stick out. Now I'm adding a texture by just coming in. And I need my texture to go around that edge too, so it looks more believable. And my branch sticking up here. Try and turn it so more people can see it. So I'm adding a texture. You can do, there's like millions of things you can do with clay for your surface to decorate it. I find they all kind of fit into 4 categories. So you're going to need to know the names of the 4 categories that we're creating. The first one, anybody remember what the name of this first one is, where I cut into the clay but not all the way through? What did I call that? A carve. Did anybody remember that one? Carving, very good, thank you. So carving is creating the deeper layer in the clay. What's it called when I change the surface? Do you remember what's it called? No? I heard it. What is it? Texture, very good. Now, here's a quick question. Is this texture? Did I just make a texture?
No.
No, that's a mark. You can make marks, right? But a texture changes the feel of the surface, changes the look or the feel of the surface. So now I have a branch. I'm going to leave this so you can see like boring side, exciting side, right? So I have a texture, I have carving, and now, where's my clay? There we go. And now I'm going to add something to it. I'm going to add a leaf, make a lovely little leaf. So I'll take a little piece of clay here. I'll flatten it. And I'll carve out a leaf. There you go. Perfect. Does it look like a leaf?
No.
No, that's a leaf. That's a leaf. That's a slab. It's not a leaf yet, right? I gotta make it look like a leaf. I'm making sculpture. Try not to do slab on slab. It's sort of your first inclination because we're so used to the world being flat. Flat screens, flat papers, everything's flat. But now we get to be 3D. So instead, I'm gonna actually push this in my hand like this, and I'm gonna curve it by pushing it into my hand. Anytime you stretch clay, if you can push it into itself as opposed to actually stretching it, it's gonna be stronger. And now, I'm just rounding that bottom part of the edge so it appears that this is a thin piece of clay. I don't really want a tiny thin piece of clay. If I had clay as thin as a leaf, it would be super fragile and hard to work with. But by thinning that edge and rounding it a little bit, it appears thin. It fools the eye. So I do that, and now maybe I'll add some detail or some texture. So I have it rounded a little bit. Let's make that come to a little more of a point. I'm gonna take, I like the pointy spoon. You can get a nice cut that way. And you can slide little crumbs of clay or little nards of clay out of there. There we go. And I'm not doing a whole lot, but just by adding a little bit of a detail or a texture to it. And this is pretty soft clay. Your clay will be more leather hard, so you can capture your detail a little better. So I now have just a little bit of detail. I have a thin edge. I've curved it a little bit. And I'm going to see the back of this because I've curved it. So I also need to put my texture on the back. I can't forget about it. I'm making sculpture. I'm making a 3D object. So I'll see that. So I'm going to put these little marks on the back too. All right. Now, if I take this and attach it to my, in theory, attach it to my tree. And I would do a little more work with this to kind of make it look like it's actually sitting on the tree. But just to give you an idea. Now is it a leaf?
Yeah.
Now it looks like a leaf. And it's subtle, but little things like edges and textures make a big difference. So now to attach this, I'm going to just mark where it sits on the side. And my rule of thumb is if about a half of it sits on there, 2/3 maybe, this is about halfway on the side, so I know it's gonna stay. If you only have like a quarter of something hanging off, attaching to your side, it doesn't always stay real well. And this is leather hard, my box, right? And what stage is this in? Plastic, very good. So I'm asking clay in 2 different stages to bond together. So I've got to be careful that I make that wetness level come together as best I can. So I get a little bit of slip on here. I might put a little water on there too, just so that they all kind of mesh together. And I didn't hear a lot of scoochies when you guys are putting your sides on, so I hope your boxes stay together, but I would recommend it for the details. Scoochie, 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 scoochie. Oh, and I can feel it. I can already feel it grabbing it, so that's a good sign. I squished my texture a little bit. Or my details, I'll put those back in. Maybe I'll bring this in like something like that. But now, do you see how that's way more interesting than a line? And you wouldn't think about it, but I've really used all the surface techniques. I have carving, I have texture, I have score and slip. So those are 3 of the 4. You need to have 3 of the 4 on your box. The other option for you is to cut a hole. Let's just say maybe I want to cut, we're just going to cut a leaf hole on this side. So I might draw it in and kind of get that idea. I like to use the Fettling knife. This one, it's like someone tried to use it for a screwdriver, and it's got a little twisty top on it, so that doesn't work as well. But I like a nice clean Fettling knife for whenever I'm cutting and doing what's actually a piercing. You are going to need to know the 4 categories. And cutting a hole, this is not really like it's not what you want to do, right? You want a nice hole that relates to the piece. So I'm going to clean my fettling knife because it always makes a nice edge. And I'm going to come in and use one smooth cut. And then I can even do things like maybe I'm going to come in an angle so I get a more interesting look in how I pierce my clay out. That's interesting. It didn't come. I'm going to cut some more off the back so that you can see it better. There we go. So now I can clean up the back a little. Now I have this sort of unique, interesting piercing in the side. If you forget, it's like a hole in your ear. A hole in your project is a piercing, right? So I can do that. I can fix up this edge. I want to get those crumbs, those little nards of clay out of there. There. And now it relates to my design. I have more depth. So your 4 possible categories: piercing, texture, score and slip, and carving. And like I said, carving can be like that. I could also do, just to show you the other option with carving, I could also carve into the clay. And really, I've had some students make some really nice boxes with just doing a shape or some sort of simple design. But by having some of that design carved out, sometimes it's pierced, sometimes it's scored and slipped, and you can create interesting design and depth that way. Make sense? All right, you ready for your quiz? No? All right. What name of stage of clay is this? That's good. No, thank you.